Okay, good evening, everybody. This is the April 26th meeting of the Master Plan Implementation Committee. We have almost everybody here, Cindy Palmer, Jim Cini, Brittany Taylor, Christina Madsen, myself, Chris Fowles, and Francine Tishman will be joining us as soon as she finishes another meeting. So this, I don't see anybody else out there for joining us from the public. This would normally be open time for the public. We're still meeting by Zoom. One of these days, maybe our next meeting, when we really don't have any documents to review, we can actually meet out at Conant Park or something and get rid of Zoom for a while. I would be very glad to do that, actually. But when we've got documents to look at, it's kind of hard to do such things. So, okay. So I think what we'll do, let's just jump right into the report, I think, and we can put the minutes at the end, because we should technically do a little vote on those, and I'd really rather have Francine here and try to abide by our quorum of at least everybody present, hopefully. So let me see if I can share this magical screen again and pull up the report. Great, okay. Looks like it's there with a little bit of luck. So as we talked about last time, this is kind of our final attempt at the actual work that summarizes, actually the thing that summarizes all the work that we did pretty much last year. And so I wanted to get any comments from anybody, and then if we're basically in agreement with it, my thought is that we just pass it on toward select board, and then they will decide how they want to proceed. I'm foreseeing some sort of a committee developing out of this, whether it's more subcommittees or what, I'm not sure. I do think master plan will kind of have some level of leadership in this, trying to keep the ball moving forward on this. So anyway, I'm hoping that everybody's had a chance to go through this a little bit more than last time, and I think what I'd like to do is just, you guys, somebody just tell me where you'd like to start. If you had particular comments or things, you know, without going through every page of this thing, but if there were particular areas that you wanted more clarity on, or something just didn't read right, feel free to start in. So anybody that might have any comments to share?
I could use some clarification in the historical chapter on the
Okay.
on Ken's recommendations.
All right, let me see if I can scroll on down here. Let's see, it's got to be right around here somewhere.
There it is. You passed it.
So, yeah, okay. Is it? You're talking about the narrative part, Christina?
Right here.
No, I'm talking about Ken's comments at the end.
At the end. Okay.
Yeah. So his narrative after following the strategies, goals and strategies.
Right.
His implementation.
I think I'm right about here. Yeah.
Right there. That's exactly right. The first section can be met with assistance by consultants. I think this is it, to engage in planning studies for the municipally owned historic properties, and expanding the various locations in town. I didn't know what that meant. Expanding the various locations of historic properties. It didn't. Can someone help me interpret that, please?
Good question. Let's just scroll up and see what goal 3.1 is, because it may be easier to see what's being referred to here. So ensure continued and expanded efforts to preserve and enhance the assets. So 3.1. So it's just this plan for the old town hall and fire station, how to repurpose the buildings, expand the number of properties. So this is it, maybe here, 3.1C perhaps? Does that make any?
Well, maybe so, but what properties designated on the national and state registers, they have to qualify, and we only have so many properties. I didn't know that it didn't make much sense, given that for the most part, the municipal buildings and areas such as the cemetery that are worthy of being registered have been registered already. So expanding locations, I didn't think, unless I was reading it incorrectly or interpreting it incorrectly, it wasn't something that could be acted on.
So Chris, are you saying that, or I'm sorry, Christina, are you saying that this has already been done, essentially, that all properties in town have been reviewed for designation on National State Registry, and there's no further properties to explore?
The center district, historic district, includes all of the downtown buildings. So that would include already town hall, the former town hall, fire station, church, every building that's included in that center district. And then the cemetery is one, and then our other historic district is over by Sheldon's, that's the canal area. So beyond that, there are no other municipally owned buildings, I don't believe, that would qualify, or necessarily locations.
So the municipal buildings, that takes care of those in 3-1A.
Properties district, I suppose districts, you could increase the districts, but however, we do not have any local historic districts.
Right. Correct. Now, just remind me so the downtown area that he's talking about, or you're talking about, is basically East Street, or is it up on High Street by Jim's?
It doesn't extend down. Oh, yes, it does. It starts at the corner of Fomer and High.
Yeah.
So it does include High Street and the connector streets between High and the highway.
Yeah.
It goes down to the schoolhouse at Quinnet Park, and down East Street to the former railroad tracks.
Okay. Yeah.
And then out Route 10 toward the cemetery.
Okay. And so pretty much any of the
that is the saturation area of historic buildings. I just wondered, I just, if you agree that recommendation doesn't really, it's not actionable, then we won't take it out, I don't think, but I was just hoping for some help on understanding it if I just hadn't grasped what he was recommending.
So let me give an example. I don't know if this even makes sense or works, because can you apply for grants for preservation of private owned property? Probably not.
No,
right?
Generally not.
No. So one could argue that if you expanded the historic district beyond the Manhattan, heading east, all the way over to Pleasant Street, even, there's a number of old farmed houses on Pleasant Street, but they're not municipally owned. So what would be the advantage of extending the historic district to include that?
Well, it is beneficial to have important areas of old buildings in historic districts, but it's a gigantic amount of work. And indeed, there's really, even with the downtown area, the center district, well, yes, we can apply for grants for the municipal buildings, but I believe that we could apply for some grants even if they weren't in the historic district, if they had value as historic municipal structures. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I don't think being without, lying without the bounds of a historic district, that would automatically exclude them. And to the process for creating other areas is an enormous project. I think for the cemetery, it was, well, I just put that report away. It was dozens of pages that justified. It was it had to be proven to Mass Historic that it was worthy of being on the historic register. So it would have to be an area that really stands out as being worthwhile. And I'm not sure that there are other areas where there are clusters of historic homes that would warrant creating a new district.
Yeah, I think that's maybe part of the challenge. Now, just a point of clarity on the, like on East Street, for example, when I think of all the old homes along there, have those been plotted out on any kind of a map or anything like that?
Well, I think they're all named in the, or all cited within the the center district designation, but also every home in Southampton that is 100 years old or more is on the Massachusetts state register. So of historic places. It's not, they aren't historic districts, but each one has a description and photograph and so forth. It's identified on Macris is the website, and so everything, and we keep that up. The Historical Commission keeps that updated. So granted, there are a few that have not gotten on, but generally speaking, that is kept up to date. So I guess I just don't understand that phrase expanding, or the possibilities that phrase designate or is looking to, expanding the various locations.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, maybe the assumption was that there was going to be another district that hadn't been worked on yet, or, I think, didn't we talk about, the reason that, the reason why we didn't get on the National Register for some of these areas, right? I mean, in terms of not being an official historic district according to, like the cemetery is, for example. Wasn't there something that we had talked about during our various deliberations way back when about the recommendation of we just couldn't be on a national historic footing on some of these places? Hi, Francine.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Francine.
Am I mistaking what I'm talking about here? There was something I thought that we couldn't or didn't want to. The town didn't want to. We didn't want to. The Historic Commission didn't want to push for other historic areas. No, is that not right?
Well, I think perhaps, Chris, what you're referring to is local historic districts.
Well, maybe that's it. Yeah, could be.
And
Yeah.
when those are put into place, activities or renovations and so forth are restricted.
That's
and
exactly it.
It's always been felt that neighborhoods would not want that.
Right. That's exactly what I was thinking about. Thank you. I couldn't come up with the term there for a minute. Okay. All right. Well, I'm wondering if in this narrative part here under this first paragraph on goal 3.1, we're just talking about a question Christina had on historic, Francine. I'm wondering if we couldn't add a sentence or two in there just saying that, at one point, the Historical Commission has, explored and not endorse the idea of establishing local historic districts or something like that. I mean, just to clarify that the amount of expansion of our historic districts, it really is, it's finite. Because I think, as you said, there are other historic houses in town but not in any kind of a cluster to be included in a district.
Well, what I would suggest then, if it is going to be changed, I think that my recommendation, if possible, would be for me to take this to Historical Commission and see if
Sure.
they would like to make suggestions on how that could be clarified, and
Yeah.
or so as long as none of you have insight as to what that actually might mean,
No.
I can pursue it in that way, or we can just leave it as one of those
Mhm.
vague areas that doesn't really necessarily isn't all that beneficial to the
Yeah.
report.
Well, I think it would be good to kind of clarify it, because I mean, I have a feeling what happened here is that the word just got pulled right out of the strategy itself
Right.
that says expand. Okay.
Right.
I bet you that's all it is, without any real, further analysis or rationale there. So we are able to make, some editorial changes, and I would just let Ken know once we decided on what they are. But you would be welcome to, rephrase some of
But
this.
he is, oh, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt, I'm
No,
sorry.
go ahead. Mhm.
I was just gonna say, he's actually referring to goal 3.1 there when he, in that sentence.
Right.
He wasn't referring to goal 3.2.
Right, but that is goal 3.1. That is goal 3.1.
Oh, excuse me, got it. I
Yeah,
was
sorry.
reading
Yeah, it's one of the strategies under there. Yeah.
3.1A and B, C,
Right.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, so that's what he's referring to, I think. So I think he probably just plucked the verb right out of there. And, if we can do a little clarity, I don't think there would be any problem to do that. I think it would be useful just for our own knowledge of what we're talking about too. And I'm wondering, now that you say, how lengthy a document is the register that you guys keep updated with the houses that are 100 years old? Is that extensive, or is that?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it is extensive. I don't know how many houses in town there are. It's accessible online under Macris, MACRIS. If you
Okay.
want me to get you a figure, I don't have a hard copy of it, but
Yeah.
if you wanted me to get you some more information on it, I certainly could.
Well, what I was going to suggest was that we actually, if that's available online, that we put in that link, the online link in here, so that anybody could refer to it.
That would be fine.
The Macris link, so that anybody, and just make a statement that, the Historic Commission, regularly updates, all, or whatever, annually updates all houses that are at least 100 years old. And they can be found here. I think that would be worthwhile noting, because there's nobody else that would kind of figure that out unless they were involved, maybe.
Right, and that would be a way, that is the way to determine whether a demolition delay might be recommended for a property.
Well, all the more reason, personally, I think, to have it sitting right here in this report. I think that would be a good couple sentences of addition in here, Christina, if you would.
Yep, and then I'm getting a paper to make a note on that. So additionally, I will see if the Historical Commission has any other additions that they would make or changes. Does that make sense?
Sure, no, that would be fine. Yeah.
Okay. So include a reference to the Macris website and a description of it.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Now, I had a question actually on the last paragraph. I don't know how much do you all at the Historic Commission get involved in this notion of the preservation of scenic vistas? I know there had been some discussion at one point about naming or whatever, labeling or putting signs out at our scenic road areas. I know High Street came back up again once to be looked at again as a scenic vista, I believe, Cindy, and I think we already figured out that it was already designated that. It's just that there's no signage anywhere to let people know that. And does historic get involved with any of those kinds of things, Christina?
Well, that would be, as you know, there are already designated scenic roads. I don't think that there are any designated scenic vistas in town that would, no, I don't think there are. But as far as the roads go,
they're actually listed in the original master plan. I believe we
right,
got them in here.
right. And the only, we have done the signage for all of the other areas, and I suppose it would mean a request, a budgetary request, if we were going to have other signs
Right.
made and then installed. So
yeah, is that not something that CPC could handle though, as a source?
very, very possibly.
Community preservation, perhaps.
Yeah,
There-
I can.
So
I can.
that might be a thought. I was just looking up here because he mentioned CPA funds can be used up in here. So there's some reference to it, but I didn't know if there was anything else. But anyway, just to kind of close the circle on that a little bit and see. I mean, I think part of our problem is that people don't know certain things about town because we don't have any signage in many places. I mean, not just for that, but other things as well.
So let me just add that last time I heard about the monies in the CPC accounts, there's $72,000 designated historical.
Oh, really?
It sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
To maybe the historical commission could help, determine what those designations are and then go to CPC with, a proposal.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. Those funds may be necessary for Old Town Hall, but also I don't know, I'm not remembering exactly how many scenic roads have been designated. Now that might be one possibility for expansion, that more scenic roads could be designated, and those are designated by town vote.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know who makes those recommendations. Probably Bob Koza would know.
Yeah.
There's a process, and it does include, I believe, going to planning board and getting kind of an approval there. And I think ultimately it probably goes to select board to determine what this, any additional scenic roads. There's scenic vistas and scenic roads, kind of two different things. So it's probably worth really making sure we understand exactly the process, but it is a little muddy right now all the way around.
But
Yeah.
also we need to understand a little better what the significance of it is. Now, I have that regulation, how it matters if you're a designated scenic road, and it really only says the only limitation is that trees cannot be cut on it without the approval of the select board. That's really, it doesn't really mean very much.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say that they shouldn't be included, but that wouldn't involve the increasing eligibility for matching grants for preservation work. Designating something a scenic road or vista would not have any impact on
Okay.
expanding the various locations. There would be no matching grants.
Yeah.
That would that would be become available by designating more scenic roads.
Mhm.
But I'll bring that up as well at a historical commission.
Sure, and the regulation that you were talking about, is that where is that sitting? Is that a bylaw? What is that?
Yeah, well, let's see. It's Mass General, I think. I have it. I will have to go through my files. And I'll get that out and have that to offer you next time we meet.
Okay, I didn't know if it might be a zoning bylaw or something, or if it's not that formal, but
I don't know. I don't think it's zoning. I don't know. I
No.
don't believe it is.
okay, okay. All right, well, and I'm guessing where I was going with that is if the historical commission thought that, maybe there was merit to, putting down additional criteria that made some sense. They could recommend some criteria that maybe, could be looked at again if it was necessary to do so. I mean, that would be the only thing I would think of there. But, okay, anything else with that section?
A little clarification.
Yeah.
I hear in Christina's, what she's saying, is she's calling this the Historical Commission, but I see it's written as Historic Commission. And I was going to quickly look up on the town website. Is it Historical Commission, Christina?
Yes, I think so.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
But
Little-
what I see, if I could just chime in here, what I see it, no. No, CPC calls it historical preservation, but I'm sure that's not
yeah,
the name of the group.
right, yeah, okay. That looks like it's probably a typo, so good catch, Cindy. We can get that fixed easy enough. Okay, if nothing else on this chapter, how about another chapter? Anybody else have some thoughts on a section that needed some clarity or just correction or anything? Was there anything, Cindy? Did you have something? You look like you were ready to say something.
Yeah, well, we pointed this out before, and that is that planning board seems to be indicated in, several spots, either as the primary or at some point in the in the various committees or commissions that are involved. A lot of this has to do with bylaw review or writing new bylaws, or somehow involving bylaws. Also, this is just an observation. There's a lot of reference in the paragraphs at the end of each chapter on how to facilitate or actuate all these ideas and all these strategies, which include working with PVPC. And I know they are our regional planning agency. And frankly, I have a lot of respect for all of them that we've encountered. However, when I go back to the planning board and have in the past, there is this idea that is PVPC our only resource? And I'm a little bit concerned that when all of this is finally agreed to by this committee as well as by the select board, and then the planning commission is, I mean, I realize nothing in here says it has to be this way, but I just have this sense of so many of the recommendations include the suggestion to use PVPC for either model bylaws or support, etc. Plus, there is cost involved all the time using PVPC. That's how they function. They have to have income. So I'm just pointing those two things out. I hope that when we finalize this report completely, that I can go back to the planning board and I can point these things out and I can say, we either have to get a big grant to get some group like PVPC to work with us on all of these things, or as you have heard me say before, there is a consultant that has been working with planning board for quite a long time. His name is Larry Smith, and he's very qualified and a former employee of PVPC. But there is a cost involved. That it's very clear the planning board by itself, without support, isn't going to be able to take on
Sure.
almost any of this. So I just want to make that point. I think these are all good. I didn't have any complaints or any concerns or any
Mhm.
recommendations for changing any of this, but that to get these things off the road, kind of get them going, we are going to need some kind of professional support around it, whether it's a DLTA, which doesn't seem like that's going to be enough.
Yeah.
So I think that's all. I just wanted to go on the record for saying that those are my observations about how this will go.
Right. No, thanks for that. That's true. Yeah. Just before I leave this page, I just scrolled up, Christina, if you can see this, the one I highlighted here, one of the strategies is enforce the protection status and regulations for the officially designated scenic roads. And they've got planning board and highway department here. So that's the enforcement authority, apparently.
Yes, and the protections are very, very few. And I'm just going, as I'm sitting here, I'm going through my one historical folder to see if I can find what those regulations are.
Okay. I mean, other than trees, it's probably, you can't move stone walls and things like that. But beyond that, I can't imagine there's too much. But
well, what I remember is the cutting of trees, and yes, no, you can't touch stone walls anywhere.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anybody else? So Francine, anything, or Brittany offhand? I know Brittany at Concom, Marla keeps asking if there's anything for Concom to do, and it seems like there ought to be something.
Yeah.
I was trying to find the on economic development. Let me just see if there's any. We'll come back to housing in a minute, Jim. Here, Concom is in on. Why is this one here? Zoning bylaws, subdivision regulations. I'm not totally sure why Concom would be in that one.
Well, I'll explain that in part. Concom and Brittany, you can clarify this for me, exactly the distance, but when there's some kind of new either subdivision or building, and it involves wetlands, Conservation Commission has authority within, what is it, how many feet of the wetlands?
It's 100 feet, yes, but this isn't necessarily a wetlands issue. It's a subdivision regulation. That's why I didn't.
But if the subdivision also includes wetlands, then that would include Conservation Commission. And we already have that right before us now with a proposed subdivision up on Crooked Ledge.
Okay,
Yeah,
all
it's
right.
tough for us because we're so specific and our jurisdiction is just so just wrapped up in the wetlands that we basically, that's all we do.
I know it gets so focused there. There's a little bit more under the whole open space and natural resources here. So Concom is tied in with lots of different things here, along with others. And again, when there's so many here, it's hard to figure out, how to make anything happen and who takes the lead on this. I mean, planning board can't be the lead on absolutely everything going on in town. So if we had a professional planner, it would be one thing, right? But even if we had a temporary professional planner, consultant, whatever, to help us move some things along, that would be one thing. But in the way we have things right now, it's very hard to see how some of these things can move together without some other kind of subcommittees, being tasked with, really some action items here. Was there an open space residential development bylaw? This is blanking my brain here.
I don't think it was ever adopted.
Okay.
It was drafted and proposed, I guess, but never adopted. So that's what it says, reconsider.
Reconsider it, yeah, in 2006. I don't know that I've even run across a draft of what it might have been in 2006.
Me neither. We'd have to find it.
You have to do some research. Yeah. Francine, does that sound familiar to you?
No, it doesn't. And I was going to ask, why was it not considered? Did somebody
Gosh
get blocked did it get blocked at some juncture and just never move forward?
Could very well be.
Well, sometimes I think about what Christina has told us in the past, that there's so many good ideas that came out of the original formation of the master plan, just kind of tons of stuff and kind of overwhelmed everybody, and the
Mm,
implementation was challenged.
yeah. Yeah. A couple here, Cindy, and I don't know what you think. This, again, I think he was just pulling right from the original master plan, but this whole prioritized list of key open space parcels, this is really open space.
Open space, they should be on there. Yeah, that's
Charge
true.
of this. So there's a couple things in this chapter that I wanted you to maybe go back and just see if you would see certain strategies that you think open space should be, included in, so that we could add that. I think we're not going to change the original strategy, but given that the open space committee has come about since the original master plan was done.
Yep.
um,
Probably more so even than the agricultural commission on that particular one.
Right, and I'm not quite sure what this recreational needs committee was. That the park commission?
That isn't even a committee, so maybe in terms of
Yeah.
editing, that could come out, put open space committee in there.
Right, so there's a couple things like that I think we could tidy up, Cindy, if you would.
Yep, and for 2B as well, yeah. What do
Yeah,
you,
exactly. A couple things like that I saw as I read through it again, as like, I think there are certain, delineations between Concom, but I think open space has taken the lead on certain ones here that could move forward. And here we are again with the expand the list of designated scenic roads, and lo and behold, we're back on now with highway planning, the tree warden, and the historical commission. So that's an interesting.
yeah, we could put open space there too, more so than the.
Yeah.
The tree warden isn't going to do that. I mean, that's gonna
Yeah,
happen, yeah.
yes, I think there's things here that could be just tweaked a little bit to make it relevant to who's around today, I guess. So anyway, any particular other things? Brittany, did you have anything that struck you that in the narrative, not so much the charts here that I got sidelined here, but in kind of the narrative that Ken had done here to sort of wrap up each chapter? He did mention that we've got the wetlands bylaw now. So that's in here. He did talk about the fact that we've put in an application to Mass Trails and a couple of other things, OSRP.
Can you edit that to say that you got the $100,000?
We can. It was a different grant, so this is Mass
Oh,
Trails is the
okay.
second one. There were two applications put in. Yep. So we could actually put in the name of the other group that we got the grant from. That would not be a bad idea. It was the small town grant award or something like that. Okay, anything on the mobility? Jim, I'm going to come back to you in a minute for the housing, but anything at all on mobility or a lot of this was more, PVPC was very much involved in this one, and I think that's largely because they do a lot of this stuff with, it's kind of up their bailiwick with their local transport systems, et cetera. And they, a lot of the money that we get through Mass DOT comes through PVPC, so they're kind of the natural, intermediary here. But it doesn't mean, like Cindy said, there may be other intermediaries. I mean, for example, when you guys did your update, right, on the open space and recreation plan, part of that had started under PVPC, but then it switched over to Fuss O'Neill.
No, that's not right. It
No?
was 100% PVPC for the open space and recreation plan.
I'm
Fuss and
thinking
was for
MVP, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, all right, sorry. Okay, so that was MVP on that one. But I mean, just to say that there are other possible consultants, I would suppose, out there that we wouldn't have to just solely, refer to PVPC. if we feel like we should broaden that out. I don't know. Now, the public services one, the Barnes Aquifer here too, Cindy, I guess I'm thinking in lieu of BayPAC now, but certainly more that Open Space is working on with the importance of the aquifer and the work that you're doing with the brochure right now. There might be something
Yeah.
that could be added
Yeah.
in that.
Yeah, we could add it there, yeah.
Yeah. There's one thing I had in mind. Oh, I guess there was, I think it was down here under the, yeah, this one, the broadband here. I was going to suggest that we add in the ad hoc technology committee in here
Which one?
under the develop a public utility to support internet broadband service. They're definitely looking at not only the improved internet and communication services within town hall, but they will be possibly expanding their scope a little bit to look at broadband in general in town. So this might be something that we could add a little bit to, and I could add a couple sentences in the narrative here, just saying that we now have an ad hoc technology committee, and they might be the ones that could take the lead on some of this. He did actually, Ken did put in more detail here about this whole municipal lighting plant. That's what's needed in order to be able to start our own kind of utility scenario, as many other towns have done. And I know we had our presentation from Whip City, from Westfield Gas and Electric, but Hoyoke Gas and Electric would be another option. And there may be other entities out there too that could be possible resources. So this is one that I might tinker with a little bit myself from my knowledge of the ad hoc tech committee, and add a couple sentences in there as well. Energy, I'm not sure if there was anything much to say here. We are a green community already. We've got our our bylaws on a couple things. We've got an energy. So he's saying here they could assist with a wind energy bylaw. I don't know if that's ever been talked about. Oh, a wind energy bylaw, or what that would amount to.
I don't think it's the highest of our priorities, but, well, we were just talking about the heavy winds today.
Yeah.
I suppose if any of our landowners on the more higher elevations ever were approached by some company that said, if you put a windmill up there, you'd make a lot of money, you know?
Yeah.
The bylaw, I don't know
Yeah.
how seriously at risk we are for that, but
Yeah. Well, it might be worth asking just if PVPC does have a model bylaw that is just a simple one. Perhaps we could ask them for a copy of it if it's not a long, involved process like the whole stormwater management bylaw. If it's a simple thing, we might at some point ask for a copy of that. That could be something that then the bylaws committee perhaps could take up at some point in time. But as you say, it's not a highest priority at the moment, although I think this is still the short-term goals. So this is still,
yeah.
it's still in here as a short term.
Well, it's not sure it's a general bylaw. I'm wondering if that might be a zoning bylaw, like the solar bylaw is a zoning bylaw.
Okay.
But you're right, a model one would be great to review.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what I mean in terms of, if we get to the point where select board looks at this and says, okay, here's how we're going to proceed, we need to revitalize, committee X, or we need to, make a new committee, ad hoc committee or whatever. These would be the kinds of things that could be done at that point in time. I don't know that we have to belabor them now so much.
Excuse me, just one
Yeah.
second. On the basis of these goals and these strategies,
Right.
is there any reason to go back and look at the original charges to these to the existing committees to see whether or not there needs to be some new direction applied? And Or we're just assuming and therefore and presuming that this is going to be within their scope and they're going to do it.
Well, I guess the presumption is it's within their scope. Assuming they're going to do it is probably a little too
Well,
much.
okay, yes, but okay, within their scope and
Yeah, and I guess I don't know, Francine, I mean, from the select board point of view, whether select board would say, okay, here's, for example, what are all the strategies under land use? You know, do you think select board would be of the whatever, the willingness to go through and say, okay, out of each chapter, for example, out of each chapter, select board wants to make strategy A, B, and C and D in this one, ones that we work on actively, these short-term ones that we put these forth as some level of prioritization. Otherwise, I just see again, you know, several pages of strategies with
right.
kind of a
Right.
loose thinking here. So, I mean, out of this, for example, if select board said, okay, well, we want you to, for example, appropriating town funds to hire planning staff. Yeah, right. Okay, we can try that right now, sure. You know, that may be one thing that as we present this to select board, we can suggest that not only do they look at this narrative at the end of each of these chapters, but in order to facilitate maybe moving this whole process forward, that, you know, they help prioritize that by picking maybe it's only one, but one from each of the chapters, for example, to really focus on for the coming year, for example.
Well, I mean, that would be a step to start getting some momentum going
Right.
to
Yeah.
accomplishing things. But man, and another question, and forgive me if
Yep.
everybody else knows this and it slipped my mind, but did we ever parcel out these goals and objectives by committee and send them to those that were, for their information, for those that were named as the initiators or the participants in making this happen?
Not at this point. I mean, again, these committees as such are nothing new. They would have been just pulled right out of the original master plan, to my knowledge. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure Ken didn't make any changes in the chart itself.
Right.
But that's why we were saying tonight, given that we do have a couple new committees, no harm in probably adding those if they're relevant to something.
But I guess my question is, if they don't, you know, if they don't go to this document on their own, how is it that they come
Right.
upon these things?
Yeah, well, again, I think that's where the process is going to have to be with select board just
Okay.
having some sort of collective meeting with at least
Yeah.
one person from these
Yeah.
various committees saying, you know, this is sort of where we're, you know,
Yeah.
aiming to
Okay.
go. So yeah, I think that's a whole other discussion.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Jim, how about any thoughts on the housing section? Was there anything there that kind of came to your attention that needed some correction or further explanation? Oop, did I lose Jim?
He's
Oh,
there.
Oh,
he
I'm
is.
here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Sorry, I didn't see you.
No, I was,
Yep.
you didn't want to see me, believe me. No, I mean, nothing really jumped out. I have to admit, I'm suffering a little bit from, fatigue of this. So
Mhm.
maybe fresh eyes, but I didn't see anything here. We spent a lot of time on this.
Yeah. Yep.
But I mean, we're already starting work with the planning board.
Yeah.
So
Mhm. No, that's good. I mean, he's mentioned in here the housing plan when updated, so he's referred to that. Yeah, I if this looks good enough, then that's fine. I don't think we have to do many changes. There's just a couple things with these new committees that probably could be added in here and a couple clarifications. But that's fine. If everybody's pretty happy with this, then we don't have to make a problem where there isn't one, for sure. Any thoughts on the completed strategies? We're basically in agreement that these are all what was done. These are the things that we would have gone over in our Smarty review, I believe, before we, finalize that. So these should all be correct as far as I know.
Right. One of the risks, I think, Chris, is that I worry about it, and this is mostly a testament to my lack of memory, but we overanalyze these things. I mean, this is a pretty exhaustive process to get to this point.
Right.
And if we start saying, well, what about this, we might, or I'll use my I statements, I might be forgetting something that was already hashed out and reviewed months and months ago during the implementation process. And that's what brought us to this.
Yeah.
That's my worry. I found that in past work I've done and in other organizations where, you put a lot of effort into something like this and you get to this point and then you review it understandably, and then people start making changes, and these people, folks are making changes, not recollecting or not respecting the work that was invested previously. And we've seen a change in the implementation committee. We've lost some members.
Right.
So I just worry about that, that
Yep.
we're starting to dig a bit too much.
Yeah.
Maybe to our detriment.
Yeah.
That's just me.
No, absolutely fine. And that's a good caution. And, again, I just would like us to be happy with all the work that we've done, and this considered to be our final report, that we can put our blessing on it and say, okay, this is it from master plan's work. And now the next committee pick it up, and that being select board to take the lead and say, okay, how does select board then want to proceed? Now, I'm assuming they're going to bring us back into this whole process somehow. But how that's going to be done, I don't know. So I think that's all I'm really looking for, is if there's no major, errors, which it doesn't look like we feel that there are. I think there's just some small wording things that can happen. If Christina, you'll just double check on some of the historic things that could use a tad bit of referencing, I think that would be fine. And Cindy adding in a bit on where open space fits in, given that that's a new committee and it would take the place of maybe this, whatever was the recreational committee. I mean, just add it in and where it's appropriate in a couple cases, because it's a new committee now, as with the technology committee, that I think going forward, they need to be mentioned in here so that, as of today's date, this is where we are. But this should really give us, the real status of what's been done. So I'm good with it if everybody else is.
I have a question. Once it's presented to the select board, might the select board say, what does the master plan implementation committee recommend happening from here? And what would we say to that?
Well, I guess my thinking is, I know it's been referred to several times, the results of our survey with those top 5 or 6 priorities that came forward, and wanting to pursue those. I mean, I think they already feel, I think I can say that. I've certainly heard it from Rini, the chair, that the select board to a certain extent feels that the mandate is there to move forward with the Greenway, to move forward with broadband, to move forward on open space. I mean, those were the priorities that were listed in housing as well. I think they feel that helps to really clarify things, but there may be, some other level of specificity that they want to provide guidance on, which I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
One thought I had is that as a member of this committee, I believe we need some additional members. I think Jim's made an exceptional point about a little level of fatigue on our part. Not that I'll continue to work on it. I don't know how everybody else feels, but I'll be happy to continue to work on this. But I also think we need some new eyes, some new blood, and we're not going to redo this whole thing. We're not going to, spend like 26 meetings going through what we already did. but I do think
No.
we could use maybe 3 or 4 extra members,
Yep.
and new people.
Yep, no doubt about that. And I think we're probably at a time where that's appropriate now. Remember, I mean, we're constituted as a 10-member committee, which I'm not sure why we needed quite so many at-large members, but that's how many we got.
I think that started with the number of required members from the original plan.
Yeah.
The number of committees that needed to be represented
Yeah. We're
as a
listed.
result of that.
Yeah, we're listed specifically. And actually, we're still missing somebody from Parks, for example. So it's
Right.
really Parks plus 3, I think, is what we need.
Mhm.
Three at large and 1 Parks. So,
Mhm.
maybe after we get through elections and see, I think there should be another person or 2 maybe toward the Parks Committee. I'm thinking they're on the ballot for this year for somebody being elected on there. Maybe there'd be a new person that would want to join us. I'm not sure there. But yes, we weren't, at the time when this was still kind of in hiatus here, working on the report, between the survey and now, I think we kind of agreed that we weren't ready yet to start looking for new members because we weren't sure what we were going to do, right? But I think the timing is coming toward us where we ought to be at least putting the word out saying, hey, look, here's the master plan committee who might be interested in working on this, because we will have some level of charge going forward, I'm sure. So yes, I think that's totally appropriate. Absolutely.
But as yet, we don't really know what that charge is.
We don't, but we can start talking to people and getting some interest up there. I mean, there's definitely some people that are volunteering for certain committees that are new to committee work, if not new to town. And this is the kind of thing that might interest them. So, Brittany, I know you've got a couple new cohorts within Concom, for example, and Jim certainly with Sierra and housing and a few others. I mean, there may be, maybe ways to delegate something off even within your own committees, if not also recruit some new membership. But so I think we'll have to kind of, we wouldn't probably get anybody on until, after the elections, I would say, until we sort of see who's out there, right? Because committees will turn around again and may have some new membership in, after June. So I would say we probably wouldn't get anybody actively on before July, but we can certainly be talking about the idea that we have vacancies. So yeah, good idea.
So Chris, just again, so I can clarify, what is the charge for this committee going forward at this point beyond the elections?
Well, Francine, your thought?
No, go ahead.
Well,
No,
I bring that up
Yeah.
only because, to my recollection, I thought that the purpose of this committee was, it was finite. The committee came in to say, my God, we have this master plan that was developed in 2013 and then not acted upon. We need this new committee of disparate members of committees in town to come together, re-look at it, reassess it, and make a recommendation to the select board. And it was implied that it had a beginning and an end. So I'm having trouble wrapping my head around where we're going forward as a MPIC, what our purpose is continuing, and maybe I'm missing something, and I don't mind continuing. I'm just trying to understand it, because it doesn't feel, it feels like, as I recollect when it first started, that we've accomplished the goals that we were set out to do. We've got a new master plan, it's updated, it's complete, and here are the recommendations. So are we to be like the, for lack of a better word, like the policing force to like make sure it's implemented, or what? How does that? I don't understand. I'm sorry. Excuse my ignorance.
Yep. Francine first, and then Christina.
Yeah, I just want to say, how this thing all was resurrected is because it was after the original master plan was done, they formed an implementation committee that kind of went by the wayside. So there was no more implementing going on. So we were charged with again, looking at the plan. And I think going forward, it may not be this group as Chris suggested, but there needs to be some decisions made about who is going to be helping to implement this plan, to live up to the title of the committee and really get it going. And there probably are a number of steps before we get to that point and decisions that have to be made. And that's why we talked about, perhaps new members, some charges, some direction. How do we get the information out? How do we get people engaged in, so that this document lives and doesn't sit on a shelf somewhere till the next time it needs to be updated, because that's not what it's about this time, hopefully.
Right.
I think people in the past made a very good effort, but it's really something that you have to have a lot of tenacity, I think, to get this and keep it going.
Yeah, I mean, I think we end up being part of a resource to whomever is going to pick this up and run with it. And that's why what I said, Jim, is I don't know if select board is going to want master plan as the implementation committee, quote unquote, in our title,
Right.
to take a lead role in making sure this moves forward by helping to coordinate, be a resource to other members that are listed here in these various strategies, or if they would, establish a separate action committee or something like that. But I think we're right at the point where we've got the beginnings now of our action plan, that some level of continued effort is going to have to happen. So that's where I think we need still some clarity on the next steps that select board might want us to take. But Christina, did you have a comment before I?
Well, I was just going to say that the danger of not having the committee is that it will simply be shelved again. And I think that those of us who are on it, representing different committees, are the ones who are supposed to go back, or to be the ones within our committees and commissions who keep some degree of attention focused on moving forward at some pace with the master plan. Otherwise, it will just just be shelved again. So I don't know the exact role, but I think we as representatives are the ones who are supposed to keep it in the committee and commission's radar.
Yeah, and I would think that going forward, to the extent we continue to exist, which I think we do. I don't think we're finite in the way you see it, Jim. That's not my impression anyway. But I don't think that we're going to be a regular committee that is meeting every 2 weeks. I mean, it may be every 2 months, it may be every quarter, to get an update from the various committees to say, okay, are you guys working on anything within these short-term strategies, and how's it going? And getting that update, maybe. I'm not sure.
So for me, what you all just described to me sounds like, and maybe this is because, and Francine, I'm curious what you would say about this as a member, but and Chris, but to me, it sounds, what you're describing seems redundant to the select board. Here's the report for the select board. The select board makes sure it gets implemented. The select board calls on the committees to say, are you doing these things? It feels to me a redundancy for this committee to continue to play that, to take on that role. Unless
I would say that the expertise to provide assistance to those committees comes from this committee, certainly not the select board. I think, as in representing different committees on this, as Christina, described, you take it back. Unfortunately, we have several committees that aren't represented here. And those are the ones that we're going to need to help along a little bit. But I really think that assistance would come from this group as opposed to the select board. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think select board is going to lead it by itself. I think they're going to delegate.
So you don't think that the report itself has sufficient detail that the Francine, so that the various boards that are recommended to take action will
I,
need
I,
consultation.
I do, but I think there has to be some level of coordination and communication and to facilitate the process. Once, I'm hopeful, once that gets going, then those groups who are working on specific goals and strategies together have their own momentum and they're going, you know, they're
Mhm.
moving ahead. It's just, I think it's just getting it organized and identifying the right people and moving it forward.
Mhm. Okay, so let's wrap this part up here. Do we need to discuss this at one more meeting, given these couple of edits that we're talking about, or shall we allow the edits to be made? Hand them in to me. I will get in the Word version and make any changes that you submit to me. And
I
then
support the second choice here, Chris. Let's
just
not
do
do
that
this
so we
again. Yeah.
don't show this again. That's fine with me if that's how you'd like to go.
Yes.
So any additions that we talked about tonight that need to be just tweaked a little bit, we'll get them to me somewhere in the next, I don't know, couple weeks. What's reasonable? How about by May 10th or some magical date? How's that?
Sure.
All right, and then we'll put it together and get it on the agenda for select board based on that. All right,
Mhm.
everybody's in agreement? Okay, I don't hear otherwise. Perfect. All right, so then the other agenda item
Do
is
we have
just,
to move on that, Chris? Do we have to make a motion?
okay, why don't we just formally, since
Okay.
we're all here? Sure, go ahead, Francie.
I'll move what Chris said. Okay,
Whatever that was.
you know, any comments and edits get sent to her that we don't revisit in the way we have tonight.
Right.
The document, and that way we can move ahead and move it along.
Okay, sounds good.
Second it.
All right, can we have a roll call vote, please?
That's an aye.
Sini,
Palmer,
aye.
yes.
Taylor, I.
Tishman, I.
Fowles eye. All right, so be it. Thank you very much. Good point. All right, then the only other agenda item I had was to go over the approval of 2 sets of minutes.
Do you want me to pull them up?
I think I have them
Okay.
here if I can find them. Just a second. Hang on, just real quick here. Come back. Okay, oops. Oh, I gotta get rid of this one. Sorry. Hold on. Can't share YouTube. Ugh, go away.
Love that.
Yeah, that's the other one. Oopsie, now I lost everything. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing here for a minute. Let's try this again. Okay, so these are the minutes from February 22nd, which goes back a while. This was, I think, the first time that we talked about this report. We had the first draft from Ken. So did anybody have any comments about this? If not, we will just move forward. I'm going to try and scroll if I can do it, but I will run it down here. Let's see. Okay, doesn't want to pick me up here. So this was just basically the initial discussion we had, and just saying that we needed more clarity. So this was before all of Ken's comments and the whole reorganization of the report. I see a typo right here under acquire.
Spelling. Yep.
Yep. But other than that, I'm not seeing anything. Could I have a motion to approve if anybody doesn't have any questions here?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Can we have a vote, please?
That's an aye.
Palmer, yes.
Sini, aye.
I'm
Taylor,
gonna
aye.
abstain since I wasn't there.
Okay, and Fowles eye. Okay, and 1 abstention. All right, thank you. And then the last one, I believe, is the one from last time, which was very short and sweet. This is our last meeting on the 14th or so of April, I believe. This was just really the first kind of look we had at this. We spent more time going over those bylaws about membership, committee membership, and how to run committees. We spent the bulk of our time on that. Okay, if there's nothing there, any?
I move to accept as written.
All right. Have a second, please.
Second,
All right. Vote.
Nancy and I.
Palmer, yes.
I'll abstain.
Okay.
Senior eye.
Tishman, I.
Paul's eye. Okay. So 5 yes and 1 abstain. All right. Very good. That's it, guys. Okay. I had no new business. Does anybody else have anything offhand that needs to be discussed? If not, do we want to set a date now for a next meeting of any sort, or just wait until we know more about when this might go to select board? I mean, I wouldn't see us meeting again before the end of May at this point in time. Shall we wait to see what happens with the select board scheduling first?
And see what, the select board says should be done by this committee. After there's discussion on the select board, if you, any of you want to notify me if it shows, when it shows up on the agenda, I'll try to be present at the select board meeting.
Okay. Sure.
That we've got a bunch of things coming up in the town. We got town meeting, we got budget, we got summer,
Yep.
we got all these things coming up. So,
I know.
before we schedule another meeting, I wonder if we just want to wait and see what
That's
evolves from this, if that's my
Yep,
thought.
no problem at all. And my only goal would be to get this in select board's hands by the end of May, I would hope. I mean, we will have done most of our business and gotten ready for town meeting. If we can get it on the agenda toward the end of May, that would be great. If not, it'll have to wait until after town meeting probably. But once we get too late, then everything's going to be dispersed yet again. And so I'd rather try to get it in their hands sooner rather than later, but we'll see what the agenda looks like. I know there's many meetings coming up with finance to work on the budget, etc. So, okay, well, thank you guys. I think that's it for tonight. If anybody would like to make a motion to adjourn, I think we can call it quits.
So moved.
Second,
All right. And shall we just all agree that we'll adjourn?
let's
Is that okay?
call it unanimous.
We adjourn.
Aye.
Unanimous,
Aye.
unanimous.
Aye.
All right. We'll call it at about 8:16. All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate everybody's
Thank you.
coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks
Good
very
night,
much.
everybody.
All right. Have a
Thanks,
good month.
everybody.
Thanks, Chris.
Good
Talk
to
to you
see
later.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.